Hey, welcome to another episode of the Rap Thought Podcast. Cast, enunciate my words. Brought to you by Matthew. Brought to you by Brandon. We're here.
And we're recording during a double pandemic.
I mean,
we got the COVID and we got the fires.
Yeah, man, these fires suck ass. I mean, last year, personally, like I got evacuated twice. Evacuated from our house, then we went to a relative's house and got evacuated from there too, and just kind of seen this all over again.
Last year was not as worse as 17 when there was no warning and we woke up to just everything on fire.
Yeah, everything is just a mess. So I mean,
for reference, we are in Sonoma County.
We're in Sonoma County, specifically West County. So we live out here, and it's a beautiful place to be. But in the last couple of years, we've had our share of wildfires that have been devastating, taking away a lot of homes and displaced people. And
like they say, the show must go on. I think I think being able to record and do this kind of stuff, it helps during this kind of crazy times.
I agree.
As long as everyone's safe and we're not in direct harm, but we'll record as long as we're able to.
We'll be here. And on top of that, if we end abruptly, not that you guys would notice, but it's because we caught on fire and we had to evacuate.
Yeah. So I literally just saw a fire truck drive by. So
so it's nuts out here.
It's real.
We'll be good for sure.
So speaking of real, what album are we doing today?
Yo, we're covering Felt by Murs and Slug and I forgot Ant. Bad. Who's Atmosphere?
Who's not officially part of the group, but he's produced their second album. This is the fourth album by Felt. The first one being produced by the Grouch from Living Legends that Murs is also a part of. Second album was produced by Ant. Third album was produced by A$AP Rock.
Which is interesting, dude.
Very interesting. Yeah, I remember when that album came out, I was hyped for it because I loved the first two albums. I was a huge fan of Felt. Like also Murs and Atmosphere on their own, but as a group, I love them as well. And when that third album came out, I was super disappointed in it. It just didn't grab me at all. I didn't really get the production from A$AP.
Was it A$AP's production that ruined it for you? Or?
I think so. I didn't really dig the production, and then the rapping just wasn't it for me as well. I think I may have listened to the album once and never listened to it again. Never revisited it. I still haven't. I want to. I probably should go back and revisit. I might have a different perspective, but as it stands now, I love the first two albums. I think they're amazing. The third one, didn't like it all. So after that, I kind of gave up on it. I was like, they're never going to come back. They don't need to. They already put out two great albums. And it's not like Slug and Murs depend on Felt. It's not like an Outkast or a Tribe Called Quest where the solo artists in that depend on the larger group, to reach a larger audience. They're way more well-known on their own.
It's kind of like not verbatim, but similar to Wu-Tang Clan, where it's like the group got started and then they all had their great independent solo careers that branched from that. Kind of like a reverse like Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And from what I remember, I may be wrong, but from what I remember, how Felt started was Murs was on tour with Atmosphere, and Slug and has been friends with all the Living Legends for a long time. They've been touring together for a long time. And I think they're on a tour bus and they're just talking shit to each other, Slug and Murs, and talking shit as to who could get with a famous actress first, who could put game on her and actually hook up with her. So they're having arguments, and then one of them was Christina Ricci, and one of them was
Lisa Bonet,
and so the joke kind of carried on, and they formed a group out of it, and they made the first album with the Grouch. I think they recorded that in like a week. Slug was in LA, and he was like, fuck it, let's record an album. And he's like, who's got beats? And Grouch was already there, like, Grouch, you have any beats? And he's like, no, but I can make some. And Grouch just made some beats on the fly, and they rapped to it, and that was the first album. I don't think they took it too seriously. It wasn't a planned out thing. It wasn't it wasn't a grab to get a certain market share or to reach a new audience. It was just like, fuck it, let's make an album. So it came about very organically, and I think that's what makes it such a cool album, is that it doesn't take itself too seriously on the first two. And then this one, I think they're a bit more serious on it, but not because of the group or anything. I think it's because of where they are in their lives.
You
Their
definitely get a
fathers
feel
and
for
their
that.
family men.
Yeah, you definitely
So-
get a feel of them talking about where they sit currently. And I don't remember if it was in the first track or if I'm thinking of a different album, but they were talking about, I feel like a common theme that's come up in our conversations is, what does rap sound like for people 40
Right.
plus?
Yeah,
And
I thought about that a lot.
And they
listening
talk
to
on this
album.
quite a bit.
Yeah, I definitely thought about that a lot. I was like, okay, this reaffirms that you can put out good hip hop as a 45-year-old adult.
So here's a question
family.
for you. Do you see, let's take the 40-year-old rapper and put him at the top of the pyramid, and then we'll branch down 2 times. So then there's a new rapper at 40 that doesn't have a catalog, and then there's people like Jay-Z, Murs, Eminem, Royce da
Royce.
5'9", who have been rapping for decades that are coming out. We're beginning to see what that latter end looks like.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what do you think of the former end would look like? Like someone just brand new out the gate, I'm 40
Yeah.
and I'm rapping now.
That's really interesting. I think the closest we have to that is would be a Griselda, the group Griselda. A lot of them, West Side Gun and Conway the Machine, Benny the Butcher, they're in their mid to late 30s, and their careers are just popping off. But that doesn't mean they haven't been rapping their whole lives. They have. It's just they
haven't been prominent
fire,
for a long
yeah.
time.
So I think what you're saying is a 40-year-old coming out and being noticed now, they couldn't just start. I don't think they could just start rapping at 40 and have a career and be successful. They would have to have grown up rapping through their 20s and 30s to develop that skill level and to be able to write songs and do all that. I don't think you could just jump in at 40 and decide, I'm going to do rapping today.
I think that's an interesting answer, just because, my follow-up question would be, well, why not be able to start at 40? Why not be able to start at 50?
Yeah, I think you could, but you just don't have the time to dedicate it to your craft like you would in your late teens, early 20s. You have all the time in the world to dedicate to rapping. You're either in college or you're not in college. Even if you're in college, you have plenty of free time to develop your craft. At 40, you most likely have a family and you have a full-time job.
So I think what makes that answer interesting is I feel like your answer is focusing on the talent and the skill level that you feel should be honed at a young age and crafted. Where I guess the first thing that comes to mind is because what we've been talking about in earlier episodes is, well, what are you going to talk? What do you have to offer and bring to the table at 40? So with the other artists that we've mentioned, it's kind of like, hey, you've talked about nearly everything that there is to discuss. What do you have left else in the tank? And they're creating things. So where I'm wondering, 40-year-old, where you can't rap about like what Jay-Z was rapping about back in the 90s of money, cash, hoes and stuff like that. It's like, man, you're 40. We're not really know your audience. That's not really what we're expecting out of you. So that's where my question was mostly directing.
They have the life experience. I would think they would have the life experience to write a good album, to make a good album that is obviously directed at a similar demographic to them, to other to fans who are around that age bracket, and it could work. I just don't see how it'd be possible without having been rapping your whole life. Maybe you've rapped for yourself and you recorded a bunch of songs but you never released them, and then all of a sudden at 40 you're like, okay, I feel comfortable releasing my music, and you have a lot to say because you're 40 now, and then you put it out and no one's ever heard of you. I think that could happen where you've been rapping, you just didn't want to put it out, and now you can. It's interesting. I wonder if that'll ever happen.
I don't know. I don't think that question has a wrong or right answer. It was really more just asking your opinion.
No, it's an interesting comment. And, we are speaking about veterans in hip hop, and specifically underground hip hop. Both Murs and Slug are considered, some of the more well-known underground artists. They've been touring and putting out albums since the 90s, mid 90s. So they've been doing this for a long time.
You've been listening to them for a long time?
Yeah, I've been listening to Murs and Atmosphere. I think I found out started getting into both of them at around the same time. So probably freshman year of high school. So probably 05, 06, maybe 04. So yeah, quite a while. And they've been my favorite. I've loved them since then. I've been a huge fan of both of them. Both their solo stuff and group stuff for a really long time.
I have to say, when we were doing Jurassic 5 and I had mentioned, if someone says, if you're like, hey, I really want to get into underground hip hop, and they tell you in your top three, I don't know who the third person would be, but they're going to tell you 11 times out of 10, they're going to tell you Jurassic 5 and Atmosphere.
I would say Jurassic 5, Atmosphere, and like Big L. Would be like the underground kings. I would say Big L is still underground.
No one, at least in Northern California, no one's telling you to listen to
maybe
Big L. I think that's
the artist. Maybe Keek the Sneak or something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a solid suggestion. But I'm thinking, like, when I asked in high school, like, what underground people can I listen to, it would probably be...
or just living legends in general.
So I checked out some Atmosphere back in the day, and I just wasn't... I didn't see what the hype was. It wasn't really... Yeah. It wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah. I think what is unique about Atmosphere and Slug's writing is he pretty much coined or came up with emo rap. He was the first artist to really break through of being really emotional in his songs and vulnerable and talking about his vices and things that are wrong with him and things that he deals with in real life. There wasn't too much of that going on at the time in the late 90s, early 2000s on a big level. And the fact that he's white, I think, helped him gain a huge traction. Because at that time, when he was blowing up in the early 2000s, underground hip-hop was exploding. It was, the internet was just coming out. People were finding out about underground. It was much easier to find out about it on the forums and things of that nature. And I think a lot of kids could relate. High school kids, college kids could relate to Slug on a certain level.
I wonder if that's why, like, Kid Cudi and him got, like, they just did so well back then, because there are two people that I couldn't get.
He wrote depressing songs, and people gravitate towards that. That's why, emo rock and punk and, sad, depressing music is popular with high school kids, because they can connect to it. It's something that they can relate to deal with whatever they're going through.
Yeah, and like with that, I can't speak to all black people, but I mean, at least like family-wise, I can't think of anyone in my family that's like, would tell me, yeah, you should definitely hit up Atmosphere.
Right.
Yeah, you should definitely listen to Kid Cudi. Like, but those two were really big in high school and in the early 2000s. And so, like, I don't know if it's just the emo culture just really connected with other cultures, but it wasn't. It never caught on with me.
I feel like if you didn't have to be into hip hop to like Atmosphere. I felt as if a lot of kids who didn't really care about hip hop, they didn't care about the culture, they didn't care about learning the history of it, but they would be into Atmosphere or Eminem because it felt safe for them, and they, it wasn't too odd for them to be listening to that, even though they didn't really like hip hop. So I do think Atmosphere has a lot of those types of fans.
It's interesting because I think about, like, well, what else was hot, like, around the 2000s? Like, the hyphy movement was really big. The crunk movement was really big. But those are really, like, genres where you can tune in, you can dance to, and then you can tune out. Like, there's no content in there that, like, you're learning anything. There's no stories behind that to where you're like, okay, like, this really moves me. So, like, then if, like, maybe if you... I'm just going to think of someone random, like, Busta Rhymes comes along, where, like... But he puts out a lot of party stuff, too. I have to think of a better one. Dre puts out a lot of, like, not in-depth stuff along with Snoop Dogg, but it's just like more vibe stuff. So like people can just check in and then check back out. But I'm trying to even to think of someone that I really connected with back then, and then comparing them to the content that Atmosphere is putting out. And it's like trying to think of like, okay, well, what's the difference between their content, and why do people feel, as you said, more safe and more comfortable with Atmosphere's content than they do with rapper B's content? So I'll have to take a look into that.
It's an interesting dialogue for sure.
I guess you could throw out the Black Album and versus Atmosphere. Why people want to connect with that more than Jay-Z, and is it because like, okay, here's another album where he's going to talk about how he sold drugs, made it up to the top. I didn't sell drugs, so like that just doesn't connect with me, and then you just tap out.
You could probably, even though you didn't connect with Atmosphere, I think you would be able to connect just on an emotional level with a lot of things that he's talking about if you sat down with one of his albums. But that doesn't mean you're going to like the music and vibe with it, and you know, it'll be your favorite type of music to listen to. But I think most young people can connect with it on a certain level.
And you know, when it comes to even with songs on the radio, like me and my girlfriend really have different tastes in music. And there's back in the day, it's like I used to want to be like, yo, turn that shit off, because it's just not. I'm not saying she likes Adele, but let's say like Adele comes on the radio. Like I want to change that because it kind of brings my mood and my energy down. So like if Atmosphere is along those lines where it's just kind of just emotional and whatever else, and you know, my feelings, and it's kind of depressing, like I'm not going to give that. I don't want to listen to that whole thing. It's just going to bring me down. So I like to listen to stuff that's higher tempo. So that's probably like, I never really caught on.
I think that's a personality thing.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I just never caught on. But I mean, that's where I heard of Atmosphere. I gave them a try. I gave 2 albums a try and just wasn't really feeling it. And then Murs, like I've been familiar with for a little bit. There's just something about the way he strings lyrics together where it just doesn't grab my attention. So I'm not too big a fan of either one of them to where I could listen to a whole album. But I do like the content that they both discuss.
We haven't even spoken on Murs yet. Murs has been one of my favorite rappers since I saw Living Legends live at Rock the Bells in 2006. Is when I discovered Murs and became a huge fan of him after that. He was the first member out of Living Legends that I really dove into his solo discography. And I've always connected with Murs. I love his attitude. I love his lyrics. I love that he's always himself. He doesn't pretend to be anyone. And he's kind of a nerdy street dude. And he talks about that a lot, and you can see it in his lyrics. He's really into comic books and superheroes and video games and stuff like that. But he's also from the streets in LA, and grew up around gang life. So he has that part of him as well. So he has both sides, and he called himself like a nerdy gangster rapper. Like he knows who he is. He doesn't try to pretend to be a full gangster. He doesn't try to pretend to be a full-on nerd. He just knows where he lies. So that's always interested me about Murs. And I think he's hilarious. He's an amazing storyteller in his rhymes. And I haven't loved all of his albums that he's put out. He's put out probably close to 15 or 20.
He's put out a bit.
Yeah, but I've loved most of his albums he's done with Ninth Wonder. I love Living Legends. And I've loved a lot of his solo material. And I was actually quite surprised by this album. It was a surprise drop. They didn't announce it. They just released it. So it was a nice surprise. And after the third Felt album, this felt like redemption to me. It felt like a return to form of them being together for me, because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this album a lot. But yeah, with that said, I think we should get into the tracks.
Yeah, we can hop in. Just wanted to thank everyone for their support and subscribing and all that stuff, and continue to follow us. Find us on Apple and Google and Stitcher and YouTube
And Spotify.
and Spotify. Man, we're all over the place.
All
Twitter
over. And we're
and
soon to be, this
Facebook.
is a secret, but none of you guys know this, but Amazon is coming out with their own podcast platform. So be on the lookout for that.
Wow.
And they actually sent me an email and said, don't tell anyone about it, but I don't care. I'm going to tell you guys.
They said not to tell anyone?
Yeah, they said keep it a secret because Amazon hasn't announced it yet.
How did you find out that they were even doing it?
Because the podcast platform where we host it, they gave us an option to sign up for it before they launch. So I did that, and it said, like, don't tell anyone.
Dude, they're going to kick us off now before we even get started.
Hey, listeners out there, don't tell anyone. Don't rat us out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because you could have started your own pod and heard that stuff too. So, I mean, yeah. Okay, fair enough. So let's hop in. Start off with Never Enough. Never's Enough.
Never's Enough.
Never's Enough.
I like dope intro track. I really like the beat on this one. And yeah, they're both kind of just like talking their shit and being slick and letting people know who they are. Like Murs is talking about how he's well known and respected as a rapper and as a man where he comes from, and he doesn't need he's not famous to the point where he needs bodyguards, but he's known everywhere he goes.
It comes off as I feel like he enjoys that way, like just showing up to a Dodgers game and
exactly. Like
when the camera pans on him, he just throws his peace sign up and just I'm gonna enjoy this game.
Right, exactly. Like he has a love for his city, and he wants to be able to always go there without worrying about any looking over his back. And then I love Slug. He's definitely aged, but he wants to still be loved, and he wants to make the most of his time while he can still make music. He wants to make the most of it, and he's trying to not take life so seriously, because I think on his early albums you could tell he took life super serious and maybe went overboard with certain things, but now his goal is to avoid stress. As a husband, a father, a family man, your goal is to avoid as much stress as possible. So his lines are, love me like it's only going to get colder now. Live in the flesh, it's the voice that ice reflects. Got me checking on the time that's left. Every choice ain't a life or death. But let's avoid the stress and let the flights connect.
Okay. That's pretty deep for that. And like, I haven't listened to his previous work, or actually I have, but it's been a long time. But That's cool to make that connection of like, I'm going to let go a little bit now.
Yeah.
So the question that I got, because there's a couple tracks I feel that, again, like when it comes to a group work, I usually look at the chorus and see like what the main thing is, and then see how each verse contributes to it. So this one, they're basically saying like, they're comfortable in life, things are good, but it's leveling up, but it's never enough. And then they also mention like you come around with your nose in the clouds, like you're better than us. And so in the chorus, it almost sounds like you're dissing somebody in a way, but then the verses don't really go with that. So is it just like a blanket statement?
I think it's a blanket statement at the general haters, or whatever you want to call them. And I think they know, like, their job's not done. Like, they still have a lot to give and a lot to do, but they want to be respected for what they have done at the same time. They feel like they haven't reached their pinnacle yet. They're still striving for more. Yeah. Which is keeping them hungry.
Yeah, so that was I really like the chorus, and I really like Slug's sing his voice in that. Yeah. I think he carries it really well. But yeah, it was just kind of like that question of, you guys mentioned this in your chorus, but then it doesn't come up in any of the verses. So it's like, is it just kind of a blanket thing? But then the song carries like, hey, this is how good we're doing. So fuck everyone else that comes around here and tries to be better. But I mean, I kind of liked, I liked overall what they did with it, but it was just kind of like, did I miss something, or but I like that.
I love Slug can be super slick sometimes and funny when he says, she got me underneath her ass and tits, and ain't neither of us fixed, so we having these kids. That's why I got to keep some work. Got me standing on the corner trying to sling these shirts. I just think that's a really funny verse, because he's like, hey, I'm still having more kids with my wife. I need to make money to keep up. Right. So I'm at all the shows and I'm selling merch,
Right.
to make that extra cash. I just think that's a funny way of saying that. Like,
Still having a good time at an older age and everything.
Yeah.
Just kind of making sure there's that cash flow still coming in.
right.
But in this song you get that sense of, without saying it, we've had these long and prosperous careers where we're living in a very comfortable fashion. Mm-hmm. And it kind of carries into the second track, Find My Way, where now they're still talking on that same topic, but now they're talking about their families. And Murs talking about, how he's being comfortable, how his family can live free off of him. He has a really good line that goes with that I didn't write down. And then how he's, in the chorus, it mentions continuing to have to pay the price, but not having to work a day in their life. And I'm sure you've all heard the saying of like, if you could find something that you really enjoy doing, you'll never have to work a day in your life.
Right. And
it's definitely perceived that they are doing that right here. But yeah, life is good. They're only working because they want to. Like they don't. Right. There's nothing that they have to.
Yeah, because they love doing it. And then the next track is "Find My Way."
That's what I was talking about.
Oh, sorry, totally blanked on that.
We're already in.
Yeah, sorry.
The segue was so smooth.
That was too smooth of a segue.
Sorry.
But yeah, I really dig this song. I love the samples. The groove is super dope. Like it's a super smooth beat. I thought Ant did a great job with the production for the most part. I like Murs' verses. He's again talking about where he's coming from and how he's always done it his way. He's not gonna try to conform to what people think he should do or how he's supposed to make it. Because Murs has, he's been super underground. He did go on a major. He was signed to Warner Brothers and he released Murs for President, which is his.
I listened to that one.
Which was his first major label debut album.
And apparently this is a Netflix password.
Yeah, right. I wasn't a huge fan of that album. I thought I had some great songs on it, but I felt as if it wasn't totally him, and I don't think it was as cohesive as he could have made it.
Murs for President, is that the one where it's an orange cover and it has...
No, it's him with his crazy hair and he's in a suit and tie, like he's running for president.
Oh, okay. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, but so he's been all over the place. He's been up and down. He's been everywhere you could go, and so he knows, the where he is, and he talks about paying the price for choosing this life and being a full-time rapper, and like you pointed out, they're choosing to do this work. They don't have to work a regular job, but they're still living their life and doing it their own way.
Right.
Which is important.
Huh. Are you at that point yet?
No, I haven't reached that point, but I will.
Nice. I like the optimism.
And again, like I mentioned earlier, Slug definitely gets vulnerable a lot. More, he was one of the first rappers to really do that. He says on here, "I'm only here to hear the crowd get lively. Your support gets me over my anxiety. Social insecurity, open up your irony." So he's letting us know, the fans, that he has anxiety and he has social insecurities about being around groups of people or around people he doesn't know, but him being in front of a crowd makes him feel comfortable.
And it's cool because as as you're talking about, it's kind of like this career of his is his safe space, is his antidote for, if things are going kind of shitty at home or something like that. It's like he looks forward to touring and doing the whole music thing, and it's not stressful. Because in a lot of music, we always hear about how the industry sucks and whatnot. And I'm sure that elements that they think that, but in this, at least for this, when it comes to the fans, he paints an impossible picture. It's like, you guys make me want to keep doing this. You guys have given me this life that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think what's unique about Slug is he owns his own record label, and he's been part of Rhymesayer since he started. So he's never assigned to a major or anything like that. He's always kind of stayed in his one route, and it's worked for him. It's very similar to Tech Nine. Once Tech Nine started his own record label, Strange Music, he's only released through them, and he's had huge success because he built up a fan base and continued to build on top of it, continued to build and created, his own culture of fans.
Very technicians.
Right. So,
very interesting
it's that route of maintaining a career. Mm-hmm. And Slug's kind of done the same thing with Atmosphere and Rhymesayers.
And next,
Don't Do Me Like That.
Don't Do Me Like That.
I actually really enjoyed this song.
I didn't like it at first.
Really?
Yeah, at first I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just like the chorus, but then...
No, I feel like at first I didn't like the chorus at all.
Yeah, but then I kind of was like... the beat's great.
Yeah.
The production on it's amazing. And then I was just kind of thinking about, like, well, if I were at a party and, like, I was a couple beers in and, like... like when you're on the couch and like when your eyelids kind of just drop and you're just like vibing to whatever's there, I could just see you be like, yeah, don't do me like that. Hey, turn that up real quick. So I could see like it turning into one of those songs that I actually do like from that thought. So I actually really liked it.
But yeah, what about the content? What it's about?
The content,
I think it's funny and true and and just to the point, and I think it's hilarious and true, and you can relate to it if you're in a relationship. You can relate to this of you're getting into an argument with your significant other, and you're both getting emotional and you're trying to figure that out. You're trying to figure out how to communicate to this person. And that's what this whole song is about. It's about communicating and
when things
not
go
being
wrong,
on the same
too.
pages.
Yeah, because like Murs, from Slug's verse, you get the feel that he's not at home. Like maybe he's on tour and like she calls him up and she's upset about something, and it's like there's nothing much I can do with that. I just have to go back and forth. But again, this kind of like is another song that brings up some maturity of like, I'm not blowing up on her. We're not being destructive. It's just like shit.
Yeah, it's
like,
grown man. This is a grown man song.
It's a grown relationship. Definitely one that's been in the I'm going to say in the 8+ years of a relationship. You've been dealing with this.
But I love Murs' lines when he says, but you've got no proof if the truth be told. What is that? What is this? How who is she? Really? Like I throw it all away for some coochie? Who, me? I put the satin on your panties. The same dude who just put the baby in his jammies. So he's like, why are you coming at me, questioning me if I'm about this girl and that girl when
I've already shown you where my loyalties lie.
I'm a full-time dad. I'm putting the kids to sleep, and I would never throw all of this away, this family away for some Gucci that I could.
And he just put satin on her panties. Like, what are you?
Yeah,
fucking dumbass line. But the line from that I really did like was following all of that was understand me or disband me, and I was like, ooh, okay, that really.
Yeah, it makes it clear cut. Like either we're gonna figure this out, or we're gonna go our separate ways.
Yeah, you catch the acronym for family that he had in there?
Yeah.
Forever, always, motherfucker, I love you.
Yeah. It's an aggressive way of saying it, but it's aggression and passion. He's passionate about his love for his wife.
Right.
But he's also aggressive about it. He's like wants her to know how he feels.
Yeah.
Very directly.
But yeah, man, I like what you said about, this is definitely like a grown, aged relationship where, we're past the whole dramatics. We're upset with each other. We're going to figure this out. But also at the same time, we've been in this long enough too to where you should know that I'm not doing most of the shit that you're talking about, if any. So I definitely,
it's such a male-female dynamic. The girl gets anxious about something, and it probably doesn't even have anything to do with another girl. It's just that's how she communicates. She's projecting her anxiety onto him, and then he's taking it literal as like destroy all of this over another girl. Like me, I'm putting the kids to sleep.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's the male takes it literally, and the female is trying to communicate how she feels, but she says it in a way where as a guy you don't see it like that the way she does. And I think it's just like a common male female,
We've been
dynamic.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we've all been there, and that's why I love this song. It's because everyone can relate to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a rapper thing. It's not only rappers can relate to this. They're not talking about the rapper life.
It also
They're
makes
talking about a normal, everyday relationship life.
Yeah, and this is where I like the realness, because like I think of when we covered DaBaby, and when one song he's just like, yeah, I'm over that bitch. I went and slept with like 5 other women the next night, and it's like, but no one does that. But then also when they're like texting back and forth, and he just throws his phone across the thing. It's like, okay, like I get that one, but there's just some of that's just so far fetched that you don't do it in an actual relationship.
Right. When you're a celebrity or whatever, yeah, you can have that life. But the reason why that when artists talk like that, like talk about the rapper lifestyle, their celebrity lifestyle, the listener, a lot of people enjoy that because that's what they want. They're listening to oh man, I wish I could do that or be like that or be in that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And not everyone's gonna like this type of song where it's just harsh reality and it's not glamorous or what you would want. You don't want to have these issues, but it's just...
No, but it's definitely, it's representative of what actually happens. Like, I've never been like, yeah, man, hey, Matt, I got in an argument with my girlfriend, so I just slept with 10 other people the next day and was totally fine. Like, no one does that.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. But, before we go to the next track, like, this is where the album for me, like it goes in a different direction. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but like it goes from like this maturity and growth and all these different things, and then it kind of just takes a left. So like the next track is Trees, and I didn't really get a sense of any if you're going to build up the first 4 songs about growth and all this other stuff, but then this song was kind of about nothing to me.
Right.
But
no, I feel the same way. I think this was just them talking their shit and doing a song where they're going back and forth every line. And it, almost similar to a BC Boys song. One artist does 2 lines, or Run DMC, 2 lines here, 2 lines, they're going back and forth. So I think it was just a dope track. It wasn't my favorite on the album, but I think they just wanted to do a track like that, where they're trading off lines. I don't think it really had any deeper meaning to it.
Yeah, and it didn't have to. It was just like it's just weird because I don't know if it's because I think of movies where there's like scenes and like build up and everything kind of makes sense, to where you have an album where not every album does that, where it builds up very well. There's but then there's some albums that are very explicit about the directions. So you could have Channel Orange, which is like, hey, this is a program with different stuff, or you have whatever album we just did recently, where the Minstrel Show, where it's like, okay, you can think of it as different channels. So like, there's just where you're building up all these like points that make a lot of sense, and it feels like a progression, and then it just kind of goes away. And you're like, oh, okay, like, I guess we can have some different stuff in here, but you're on a good roll, and now I'm like randomly being shifted.
Well, going to Through the Night, I thought this was a really dope song. I really like the laid back feel of it. The beat was a little more chill, and both of their flows were slowed down and a little bit more subdued.
I think Slug sounds better slowed down.
Yeah.
Murs can go either way, but
yeah, I agree with that. Slug, because he pronounces his words so well, and when he slows it down, you really hear every single word, and it has an impact.
Yeah, sometimes when he's enacting his rhymes, I feel like it's kind of like said this in a previous pod, where like that theater kind of acting, so it doesn't feel like authentic. But
it's kind of both of these, not both their verses. I think they do talk about their vices toward the end of their verse. Or Slug's is cigarettes, he's trying to quit, and Murs is masturbating. And like towards the end of his verse, he's talking about being at a job and he's about to start masturbating, and then he finishes and he's like, "Oh, if my boss walks in, she's gonna kick my ass."
Yeah,
it's kind of a funny thing. Maybe it's true. From when he was younger and he had a job, and he's talking about that time when he was working and masturbated at work and like worried about his boss walking in. So it's kind of a funny thing to call back and to relate to this song of making it through the night.
It's
Maybe
making it
he's recalling. He's telling a story when he was younger. It's just like, man, I just gotta make it through this one night. I gotta do whatever.
That's kind of the feel that I was getting from it. Was like they're both giving into, as you said, with Slug and cigarettes, because it sounds like he's just cruising down the street and sees someone smoking and it's like, oh shit, and then ends up getting back into it again. Where Murs is just like, yeah, man, I need to get into this bathroom real quick.
Right.
So it just kind of, for me, just made me think of like maybe it was like a really like just this tough day, and it's just like making it through, and like, you know what, if I relapse one time, it's worth it because I had it was a tough time. So it's fine. I'll clean it up tomorrow. I'll do whatever. I gotta ask. I'm gonna ask every time this pops up. You know what I'm gonna ask too, probably. J. Cole talks about
I'm gonna
this.
give you the same answer.
No,
you already know what I'm gonna say.
I know what you're gonna. Did you have a problem with what Murs rapped about?
No, because it was funny.
Oh my god!
And he only did one line of it.
Bro, it was a whole lead up to
it was
the
a
song.
lead up, but you didn't know what it was gonna be until the last line.
No, man, like that's the whole purpose of his verse, was just like, this is what's leading up, this is what I'm doing. And then even Slug a couple tracks before said like, focus like I'm stroking the worm. But
yeah, but you're acting like I don't like sex and songs.
No,
That's not what I'm saying.
I know you don't have a problem with sex and songs. It's just funny how like, hey, J. Cole did a whole song. Nah. But Blue mentioned it in one of his tracks.
You know what the funny thing is? You don't even like that J. Cole song. So why are you coming at me?
Because I want to know. Like, it needs to be consistent. You need to not like all of them.
I am being consistent. I'm being very consistent.
You're saying you don't like J. Cole's track. But
I'm saying I don't like that song because I don't need to hear a full song about him losing his virginity when he was in middle school. I just don't need that. But if you're talking about this one line about when he was at work and he needed to masturbate, that doesn't bother me.
Let him get his. Let him get his. All right, fine, man. I'm still bringing it up each time.
All right, bring it up every time. But you still don't like that song either. So.
The song's fine. It's not like, I'm not like, yeah, man, cue up that.
You probably listen to that every night.
I probably do. So.
All right, next song, Freeze Tag. This got a little bit more of like a country flair to it. It's got some guitars sampled. It's an okay. It's an R&B. I didn't like it at first. Now that I've listened to the album, 4 or 5 times, it's grown on me. Mm-hmm. And I like it, but I do really like this song, and I like the lyrics in this song. I like Slug's lines. He says, "They call me daily. I get it nightly. Stay awake, you never know where they might be. I get respect even when they don't like me. Just trying to find some Wi-Fi to sex with the wifey." His last name is Daly, so that's the play on words.
That's cool. I was meant to look that, and I didn't.
Yeah. He gets respect by people, even if they don't like his type of music, they still respect his hustle and how long he's had a career in the game for, and for his ability. And then he ends it with a funny line. It's just like, hey, this is my life as a touring rap artist. After I'm done with the show, I need to go find some Wi-Fi so I can sex with my girl. I just think that's a really funny thing, that's his reality.
I don't know about jacking off over a scream.
And then I really like Murs. He references The Walking Dead. Which I thought was dope. I've listened to his podcast, and he's on Twitch as well, and he's a huge fan of The Walking Dead.
How far did you get in The Walking Dead?
I haven't watched the last season. I need to watch it.
I stopped a couple seasons back.
I'm behind one season.
Oh, nice. Yeah. If you ever get a chance to read the comics, that's where it's at. Those are cool. Actually, I need to order that 4th compendium so I can catch up, but
nice.
I don't watch it anymore.
Yeah, and he also, he has some good messages in his lines. He says, to think that true love don't come in the same sex, suplex him and the neck and be done with it. I'm politicking, but I'm trying to have fun with it. So he's been a very big advocate for, doing away with homophobia in hip hop. One of his songs, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, his song was a story about a gay guy, and he made a music video, and he played the gay guy in it, and he kissed another guy in the music video, and he got a lot of flack for it. But he was trying to make a statement of yeah, I'm straight, but I can act, and my character can be a gay guy, and I can perform it, and it doesn't matter. I'm still who I am, and I can still be a rapper. I can still be in hip hop. So he was trying to break down a lot of barriers, and he still has a firm stance on that, which I think is great. He doesn't hold back with that. He wants everyone to be included in hip hop.
That's a cool message. I'm not, I haven't really followed Murs a lot, but I'll definitely have to look that one up.
Yeah, I think it turned out to be one of his more popular songs and videos. So you can definitely find that. It was a cool song.
Yeah.
Next we have Sticks and Stones.
I like this one. They kind of talk about like stuff that happened to them back in the day and how like it influences them now. So I mean, I think that's pretty intense. If Murs really did come in contact with a grenade,
right? I believe him. From listening to his podcasts and him telling stories of when he was younger and listening to all his music, he definitely grew up in that environment. And I think this is my favorite song on the album, and I love Murs' ability to tell a story. I think he's amazing at it. If you listen to his older albums, like he has so many good storytelling songs, but because he's so vivid and the way he puts details into his raps, it really puts you there.
You think he's up there with Ghostface?
Yeah, I would put him up there. I would definitely. So yeah, like you mentioned, like he was around guns and violence, and his lines when he says, "I remember my first date and my first beef, and on both occasions I was shooting blanks. Never caught a baby or a body. Don't know who to thank. I was addicted to aggression and adrenaline. Wet dreams smelling like gun oil and cinnamon." And those lines really hit me, because he compared having a gun and getting into girls at the same time. He's probably a young teenager, and shooting guns at people and having unprotected sex, and he shot blanks on both. He didn't get the girl pregnant, and he didn't kill anyone. And I thought that was those two things are really powerful to put next to each other. Both of those things can dramatically change your life and possibly end your life. You go to jail, or you become a teenage father, and that can have a huge effect on your life. And who knows where you end up.
18 years to life.
Yeah, and when he says wet dreams smelling like gun oil and cinnamon, it's like very vivid things. Gun oil, the smell of a gun, and cinnamon, like smell of sex or being with a woman, has that like sweet smell to it. So it just like puts vivid images into your head, which is crazy.
Yeah, and then I liked Slug talking about kind of like, I get the idea that he didn't grow up particularly in that type of environment, but like noting how that is still prominent in the shows and the media that he's watching.
Yeah, he went at a different angle, which was super interesting as well, talking about the military and violent movies and games and how we've been programmed.
Yeah, and just he talks a lot about like the programming and how that it really does play away. I mean, I just think of even on social media, or these people, even growing up in West County, where you have these like fake gangsters, where if you really sent them down to a hard place, they wouldn't survive. But that's the culture that they're picking out of the music that they're listening to, the TV and the movie show and the shows that they're watching on TV. So it's just as, I'm going to use the word vitriol because that came to mind, as not as bad, but up there with, being actually immersed into it.
Right. Yeah, super dope song. I think that might be my favorite. Then next we go into Underwater.
Underwater, I think, is my favorite track on the album.
Yeah.
I love the singing to it. I love the beat to it.
Yeah, it's a great beat. I really like this song as well.
Yeah, it's just all around sounds really good. But I was kind of wondering if there was like a double entendre in the song going, because it's really, they're talking about basically hooking up with a girl, but both of them are referencing going down on her.
Right.
And so I was like, I don't know if it's just the whole WAP culture like that's happening right now. I'm just like, holy shit, like, is it happening here too? Or if it's just like going in. Because say things like, Murs' verse, like a flick here, and I'm like, oh, flicking the bean, okay. And then cracking her hips and burying his face in.
Yeah.
And then underwater. So
Right.
I was like, okay. But I think I'm stretching a little bit.
I think there is a double entendre of being underwater, going down on them and it's being wet. And also just being underwater. When you're underwater, you're kind of weightless and free, and they probably feel like that just when they're hooking up with their respective wives or girlfriends or whatever, they feel that freedom.
And the thing that backs that up
lightness.
is like Slug talks about how like she fell asleep on his neck, and Murs is just like he's falling asleep with her too, and like hands her on her treasure,
Right.
and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I think
it's you fell asleep with your face on my neck. I fell asleep with my hands on your treasure. Ooh, the things we used to do before we had to wake up and take these dudes to school.
Right.
It's like that's the grown man life right there. You know what I mean? That's what we have to look forward to. You fall asleep with your girl, and then you got to wake up early and take your kids to school. You don't have the energy or the time to do everything you want.
I don't know if I'm ready to bring kids into this world, man. It's too much shit going on.
But yeah, and this is another example of grown man raps. You know what I mean? It's,
All around, I really like that track, and it sounded really good.
and then next we have Alexander for real.
Alexander for real. I don't have much to say on this one.
It's a dope beat. I think it's just another one of them, talking their shit, and them saying they want their respect for the music that they made, and they've been putting in the work for so many years, and they're making money, and Murs does has an interesting line where he kind of goes at rappers that do drugs and get high and they need help. So he says, I logged my 10,000 looking for the new goals to achieve. I've been browsing so many O's to this G, I can't count it. About to stack it all and build my own space mountain. Type of shit these rappers be saying out their mouth when they high off the lean in the weed and need counseling. So he's saying he's been here for years. He's put in his 10,000 hours. He's always setting new goals and achieving them and building and working towards something. And then I think he looks at these younger rappers who are high off of lean and just and partying and doing drugs. They're not on the pathway that he set for them to follow. So he's kind of pointing it out like, hey, I've set this path. I've been there and I'm doing all the work so that you could look at what I've done and follow and do better than I have.
Yeah, and he's kind of calling them out a little bit too, of just like saying, when we drop records, we're dropping felt. And kind of like what you're saying with all these other artists, as we'll do in a couple pods from now, there's not really much content to them. And so he's kind of looking back at his 10 years and, as you said, like the platform that he's laying for them, and whether they're straying from the path or sticking with it, it's like, it's still not like what we're putting out there, but
right. It's a cool song. I think it does come off as Murs talking shit, but I think he also wants them to do well. He wants them to get counseling. You know what I mean? He's not just saying, oh, you're a shitty person for getting high off lean. He's like, no, you guys need counseling. You need to get help so that you can continue your careers. Because Murs has seen it all. He's been here since the mid-'90s, so he knows. He's seen probably hundreds of rappers come and go that were promising or had the ability and just, threw it away on drugs or whatever, or the street life.
Yeah, and the next track, Hologram, kind of continues that sentiment right there of and I don't need approval, I'm just trying to keep it moving around, and I don't need to be so mature and juvenile, but I don't give a fuck about what they hollering. If you understand it, put your hand up in the hologram. Don't need approval, I'm just going to keep moving around. And that's just kind of going over what we were just saying now in the chorus.
Yeah, it's I really like this song. I love Slug's lines, and I remember the glow of the ember on the end of those old cigarettes we used to smoke, and now we want to spread love, self-care, and growth, but still trying to touch the butt of this American joke. So what I get from that is, they used to party and give into their vices and smoke cigarettes, and now he's like, I just want to spread love. I want to take care of myself, and I want to grow, and I want to be with my family, and I'm still trying to chase this American dream of having the white picket fence, the family, the dogs, the cars, the money. He's still trying to figure that out. How does he fit into the American dream? So yeah, I think this is a dope song, and I love the features from the Grouch and A$AP Rock. So I thought it was a cool way to bring them back into Felt.
Yeah, I like too how they both, and at least in Slug and Murs' verses, how they kind of like, I think Slug something along the lines of still smoking cigarettes or something to do with him going back. But the Murs, as you mentioned too, hey, he's kind of nerdy and everything, but just I'm still reading comic books until I'm skybound. So until he's either passed out or
right. He's like, I don't give a fuck that I'm 40 whatever old dude. I'm still
doing me, and I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. And so this is where it kind of goes back to the first 4 tracks of in our conversation of well, when you're 40 plus, what are your raps about right now? And I like that he's because I remember, in high school, if you tell people that I don't know about reading comic books. So let's say you tell people you watch anime or something, you're going to get laughed at and clowned on. So I like here with, despite his age, where it's man, I still do this stuff. I still have a good time. I like how he's just kind of nonchalant. I still go down to the store. I pick up some Oreos. It's all good. I'm just living this life. But he got political for here too, which I thought was really interesting. And it's kind of the first time throughout the whole album that he does that. But detain the black, deport the brown until we dethrone the orange face-ass clown. Double down on these conscious rapping millionaires fighting for the rights of civilians like they really care. And I thought that was... Oh, no. I don't know if it, if you want to say it doesn't fit, but...
I think it does in the way of him speaking his truth and what he wants to say. I think that's the whole point of this song is getting out what you want to say. He's kind of pointing out the realities that we're in right now in America and what we have to deal with and how he views it. So yeah, I think it fits. I mean, of course it's not a political album, but I think it's okay to have a few political lines.
Definitely.
Putting that out there.
I just meant does it fit the rest of the track? And then also has it been referenced in any other parts of the album? Which is no.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was just a cool plug, and it was just a funny plug in there.
Yeah. I really liked the Grouch's lines. He says, had pennies for my thoughts when I pulled up. My pants used to sag. Now I'm a dad. I got bennies for my thoughts. Nieces and nephews still got more to walk. Many, many, many more to clock miles and minutes. Talking about how he started. He used to, get pennies. He used to sag his pants. He was young, but now he's a dad. He's grown up, and now he makes money from what he does because he stayed true to who he was and followed through with his plans and his career. And now he has family that are growing and pursuing their own life. And he's like, we still got a long, long way to go. Still got miles to put in. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
And if you want to decipher A$AP Rock's verse, you can go right ahead.
Oh yeah, dude. You know what? We might have to.
I actually sat down and read it and was like, all right, I'm gonna try and get this.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck.
Sometimes you can. I mean, I didn't give him a whole lot of time on this one, but we might have to see if we can.
I want to do one of his albums. No, I read an interview about A$AP Rock and someone asked him
the fuck
what do you think about people not being able to decipher your lyrics or understand what you're saying? And he's like, that's bullshit. I always have a point in my lyrics. They're not random. They're not just random words put together. It always has to do with something. There's always a meaning behind it. And if you just can't read it and understand it, then that's on you.
You know what? With that said too, his stuff really, I don't know. I feel like when you press play on one of his tracks, I think by the second listen, you have a feel of what he's talking about.
Right. Subconsciously, you kind of know what it's about. But when you read it,
if you
might
read it,
get
it makes
lost.
no sense.
Yeah, you get lost in the vocabulary and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if someone told you what it was about, you're like, oh shit, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it just, like, because there's a couple sentences in there where you're like, okay, that part makes sense, even though he clearly made up a word for this.
Right.
But then you just kind of get the general context of what he means.
I think we definitely should do an Aesop Rock album. There's this mathematician, I forget what it's called, but he built an algorithm that basically compared 100 rappers and their unique vocabulary usage in their first like 3 albums. So he uploaded all their lyrics to this algorithm, and Aesop Rock had the #1 most unique vocabulary out of any rapper.
I couldn't argue that.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, and I think that could be why sometimes it might be hard to decipher, because you may not understand all the words he's using, but if you do, then it makes sense. It's kind of like that. So, and I don't want to say that it's for smart people. It's not for nerds.
Oh, it's definitely not. Like,
Yeah.
that's the difference, of using highly sophisticated words in your verses, where he's not. He's using he's using things that you don't like. Why the fuck
You
did
wouldn't
you say
put
that
them
word?
together.
Yeah, it makes no sense, as we said. Like, when you read it back and forth, but it's definitely nothing that you can't pronounce. It's just,
All right, so moving on to Crimson Skies. Yeah, cool. I really like this song. I really like the beat. I really like the references to the Matrix and disconnecting from the construct of being in a simulation and outsmarting our smartphones. So Slug says, how many more kilometers to paradise? I want the thermometer to spike with the Fahrenheit. Throw the cellular device out the car. Like, this simulation might be a product of the smart life. So yeah, that's definitely the world we live in. We're kind of controlled by our smartphones. It's almost a simulation that we're connected to.
you ever get caught just sometimes just not even doing anything on your phone? You're just scrolling and you're thinking about all the other things you should be doing.
Yeah, and then I get mad, and then I'm like, fuck, and I get off.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, there's these dishes that I need to be doing. Let me just scroll.
It sucks.
endlessly on
It's not a
Facebook.
good feeling. Like, you don't feel good after doing it. It's just, it sucks.
It's a huge waste of time, and then by the end of it, but when you're like, okay, I'm finally gonna go do something, it's been hours,
Right.
and it's just really this disconnect.
Yeah, and then Murs' verse, I couldn't tell if he was telling a story, like just being imaginative and telling a story, or if he was telling something that really happened to him. But I get the picture of he was driving in the desert with a friend, and then something happens, and he had to get out of the car and leave and walk the other way, and let him out of his life. And that's just kind of like the image I got from that. I didn't know what exactly it was referencing. Yeah,
I'm not really understanding it either, because I'm just imagining like they get in a car, someone has one of those like corn, like those things of corn that you get from the fair that like have mayonnaise and the red sting on them.
Yeah.
And then like they stop and it's like, all right, like things aren't working out, so I'm just gonna go walk the last 20 miles. And so I'm not I don't know. I don't know if like I'm clearly not understanding the point of the verse.
Right.
But
yeah, it would be nice to hear what he had to say about it, if he could like decipher it. All right, so the last track on this album is Borboleta.
sounds like a cheese.
Sounds good. Sounds bomb.
You want to go get some borboleta?
Damn, bro. Let's start our own Borboleta cheese company. So yeah, I thought this was a great way to end the album. It was a little bit more hopeful and uplifting. Kind of goes out on a good note. I really like Slug's lines. He says, and I hope you recognize me for my love and my work, even though I've known you've also seen me at my worst. But when I finally go towards that white glow, I'm going to go knowing that I broke a few cycles. And I think that when you get to a certain point in your life, you kind of realize, and this probably happens in your 30s, you realize that you really just want to unlearn things, and you want to break cycles, and you want to grow as a person. That becomes like a huge focus, and you don't want to continue those bad cycles that you've had previously, that you grew up with, or that you developed over time, that you don't really want. And that could be related to relationships with, your significant other, or your work relationships, or your friend relationships. And you learn what's really important, that you want to be healthy mentally. And that becomes more important as you get older. So I think that's kind of what Slug is referencing.
I definitely feel like as you enter 30, there's definitely this newer priority. And I don't know if it's because there's like when you're in your teens and you're in high school, there's a lot of false things that you feel like are important. And then you begin to work them out as you get older. So it's like maybe in high school, from a dude's perspective, we're just about getting these girls and partying, having a good time. But shit, like I want to move out. I need to be independent. Then I need to get a car. Then I need to have a job to support all these things. But then when you get all these things, you realize that there's bigger things than that. And then you kind of hone in on them. And now I'll be 32 next month. And it's kind of like, yeah, like raising this buddy and stuff. Like I kind of want to what's that word? Invested into the rest of my life so I can live comfortably and stuff like that. Yeah. So I feel all that. That's cool.
Yeah. Murs had some great lines.
He had a cool verse, and I feel like I relate with this one a lot just because I don't know, like you kind of reflect back on your life and it's like, you know what, I did everything, like I guess like to quote like Sinatra, it's like I did it my way. Like I really did it to the best of my ability. And he says, I took quotes from the G's and Gents, and I can sleep with my sins. I don't need to repent. And it's kind of like accepting everything. It's like not wanting to change anything that got you to where you are today. Right. And it's like, I fucked up. I've listened to people. I've not listened to people, but it's got me to where I am today. And I really like the person that I am.
Right. Yeah, totally. Those are really important lines there. And I also really love when he says, and never change who you are just to get dough. Be soft, be strong when you gotta be, and treat a brand new day like the lottery. Head high butterfly till your number's up, and when they try to bring you down, that means you're coming up.
When they try to bring you down, that means you're coming up.
Yeah, when people are coming at you and trying to tear you down, that means you're going somewhere. Mm-hmm. You're traveling like this while other people are trying to hold you down.
But how do we tell these kids this? I don't mean kids as in our listeners, but like the kids I work with, because there's some that like, I want to be. I don't think
you can. You can't tell people that. They have to experience it. Mm-hmm. They're talking from the point of view of experienced older men, and they're telling the listener about what they've learned and their experiences and kind of advice. When he says, be soft, be strong when you gotta be. There's times when you need to be softer and deal with things in a soft way, and there's sometimes when you need to be strong and be assertive or aggressive. You have to find that balance. You can't be aggressive and strong with everything in life. Mm-hmm. And you also can't be soft with everything in life. You'll get taken advantage of. And if you're strong with everything, you'll alienate people from your life.
Right. You can overdo it.
Right. So, it's just showing that they're coming from a lot of experience of dealing with everything you could possibly deal with in however many years, 40 plus years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just made me think of like there was he's 16 now, but this kid that I worked with, and a lot of family issues. He's on the autism spectrum, and his whole thing was wanting to be this class clown, and when you're clearly just getting on everybody's nerves. And, like having those talks like, yo, man, like you just kind of got to do you, kind of like what Murs was saying. And, right. But there's just this going back a couple tracks where, Slug's talking about how things are portrayed in media that make you want to be a certain way because you think that's the only way to fit in. Like people take that stuff literally. And so when the 30-year-old comes in to kind of drop knowledge, or even the 50-year-old or the 60-year-old, it's like, yo, you're so far out of where I'm at because I'm 15 that like you don't, man, you did that eons ago. Like we're not even on the same page. So it's kind of hard to reach kids sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you can only do so much. You can only tell them so much with words. They got to walk the walk, walk the path to really know what it means.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the album of Felt For You.
Felt For You.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this album. I was quite surprised by it. Only because I didn't really enjoy Felt 3. I think if this came after Felt 1 and 2, I'd be less I would like this album a little bit less, but I still really enjoy it. I think it's a great album from veterans in the hip hop game.
That's kind of sad because it's almost like because of the previous one, the standards were so low that it made this one great. Where like overall, if that one didn't exist, you wouldn't really be feeling this album.
I know I would still be feeling it, but I just really enjoyed this album. It really surprised me on the first listen. Now that I've listened to it, 4, 5, 6 times and really digging into it, I really do enjoy the album. I think I would enjoy it the same. I think on the first listen, that's what I initially felt. Like, oh my God, this is so much better than Felt 3. But it leveled off the more I listened to it. And I was just like, okay, this is a great album.
So that's cool. My thoughts come from a background of not listening to Atmosphere, not listening to Living Legends, not really listening to Murs either, but being familiar with who they are and some of their music. Yeah. And so as I listened to this, I really like the production behind it. Like I really like the jazz.
Ant did a great job.
Yeah.
He does a great job of finding cool samples and using instruments, and he does it in a really pleasing way. He makes good music. I always enjoyed his production. He produced almost all of Brother Ali's albums. He's done all the Atmosphere albums. So he has a good body of work.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that said, like, I really liked all the beats. Some of the lyrics for me, it's just, they're very straightforward, very surface.
Right.
There's no like in-depth thing that you really have to decipher. And so sometimes like where rhymes can be too basic, I kind of like, I'm not too interested in.
Right.
So for example, I'm not too big. I'll get shit on for this one. It's fine. Like I'm not the biggest fan of Too Short. Like his rhymes are almost too simplistic for me. They're not on that level, but it's just like there's just something behind it that it just doesn't catch me. I don't really like.
You don't have that like, oh shit moment. Like he just said that, with as opposed to another rapper who says something really clever.
Yeah, I like
when you get it, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, I think I like a lot of that. Like I like a lot of I do like my metaphors and stuff where I'm like, I have to go back and rewind to be like, yo, what did he just say? So that's where my niche is, but I also do respect the things that they do talk about because it's very like real life situation. So am I going to say that I didn't like this album? Like, no, I thought it was great. It's not, there were parts where it wasn't on where like, this would be on rotation for me, but I really like the content that they talk about. And I think that's the biggest takeaway because I really feel like we're beginning to talk about a new, like, I don't know if I want to say epoch. I never use that term, but like this new subdivision of hip hop where you're having older artists drop albums, and like you're kind of curious, like, well, shit, like,
that's only natural. Hip hop's only been around for less than 50 years. So.
Yeah, so this is where like it gets interesting, where I'm like, these guys nailed it. Like I really like the stuff that they're talking about in their older age. Like, keep this going. So I do like it. I did like the album.
Yeah, it was a dope album. I think both Murs and Slug are still putting out great music. They can still write great rap songs this long into their careers, which is amazing. And I think it should be applauded more. And I think we should, the hip hop audience should recognize it more and support this kind of stuff more. Yes, hip hop is a young man's game, and there's always going to be the newest next big thing, but we still need to recognize our greats and the ones that came before, much like rock does. 60s, 70s, 80s rock bands still survive today doing tours, and they're still put on a pedestal because of what they did decades ago. And hip hop, it's a little more competitive, and it's more of, all right, who's got next?
You know what, Matt? I don't know if people are really going to... I agree with everything you said. I just don't think people are going to do that until they're older, unfortunately. Because I feel like... I mean, this is just from my shoes, and I could be totally wrong. But, like, you kind of just really listen... There's a lot of people that listen to music just for the feels and the vibes. Like, they don't want to be told certain things. They don't want to hear that. But it's not until later on where maybe certain things are old, they're played out, you're ready for something new, that you begin listening to what people are saying because maybe it's atmosphere, maybe it's Kid Cudi, maybe it's someone else, but they finally said something that like, wow, I connect with that person. Right. So now I'm going to start listening to more of their music. So maybe that's what it takes too. But I don't know. I feel like it's vibes. But with that said too, like I don't really know if these are very mellow, jazzy beats, which you and I very much like. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if
no, probably not.
These new age kids are like really gonna like that stuff.
Well, this album isn't for them,
and it's not.
Yeah.
And so, we want to ask like, hey, definitely go out and listen to the album. But if it's not made for you, you're not really gonna listen to it.
No, check it out. I think you can pull some good things from it. Dope lyrics, dope beats. And it's a quick listen. It doesn't take too much of your attention. Mm-hmm. The songs are pretty short. It's usually just one verse each.
The whole album's like 40 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our rap thoughts on Felt For You by
Felt For You,
Murs, Slug, and Ant.
Yeah, check it out. It's a good read. Listen.
Yes, sir. And we'll see you guys next week.
Mm-hmm.